In Moses' day, Miriam sang with a tambourine. In David and Jesus' day, they sang psalms with a lyre, and a harp. Later, in 1582, in Gregorian times, which was Pope Gregory, it was chants. We chanted, or they chanted. That was a form of a worship without instruments. You just, instead of singing, you chanted, and then instruments were gradually introduced, and you had the organ, and the organ dates back to ancient Greece in the 3rd century BC, but it didn't come into the Western world until the 7th or 8th century AD. So there was always a sort of ancient organ. So instruments then were, like the organ, were introduced during the Reformation with Martin Luther. He brought about congregational singing. So, maybe obviously then congregations didn't sing. It was the priests, the rabbis, they were speaking, or they would recite stuff. So in Martin Luther's time, they brought in congregational singing, so the congregation entered into it. In the Methodist, I can nearly speak, movement, they brought in hymns that weren't Bible based, which means they weren't taken straight out of the Bible. They weren't singing psalms or laments or anything like that. They were singing songs that were written about stuff that was in the Bible, about biblical beliefs, but it wasn't actually wrote in the Bible. So you'd have hymns like, How Deep the Father's Love, Abide With Me, etc. And this was in the 18th century. Today, we sing what we call contemporary worship music, not so much of the old hymns, but worship songs are rewritten hymns to take out the old language, and we have drums, electric guitars and keyboards, etc. So worship does evolve, and it's not the worship that changes, it's how we do it, because we are different people. We have evolved in life. Our worship today with drums, guitars, keyboards is not more important than the worship that Miriam did with her tambourine, or with David did in the temple, or anything like that. There, it is just worship is from you. It is what comes from you. It's not what everything else around it is, although that can encourage you to worship more. But it's not to say that our worship is better than their worship. All worship is good, because it's where the worship is coming from, not on how you do the worship. The style that worship takes may change, but the heart of worship remains the same. It's all about Him, about the gratitude of salvation and the awe and wonder of God's love for us, His creation. We will always worship differently outwards, similar but differently. Our hearts, though, should be in unison. Some people will lift one hand, two hands, some will do it this way. There's no right or wrong way to worship. It is just how you are, sort of high in your personality. It comes out within you. But the physical, the outward motion of worship is different for every single person, but the heart should be the same. The heart should be that heart of worship, that this is all about God, this is all about Him, and it's about the salvation that he brought to us, and we are giving thanks. So the outward worship may be different, but the heart should always be the same. So don't be watching people worship and think they're better Christians because they can worship better than me, because they aren't. They're just worshipping differently. And it's just, even with prayer, people, some people I love listening to praying. I feel I get so caught up in listening to my own prayer that I feel like I'm very repetitive, and I fixate on one word. But it's not about, again, I know you're praying for somebody, but it's really not about what's coming out of your mouth. It's what's coming out of your heart, because you when you're praying, whenever you let your heart take over, it becomes different and you feel it different around about you. Same way with worship, but don't be comparing yourself to other people. They're not better Christians because they worship better or pray better. Everybody is the same. Everybody is a child of God. Everybody is a sinner saved by grace. They are just in a different season on their journey and not yours. Plus the fact is, sometimes when you're first a Christian, there's that, that pure joy of being a Christian, and then life can sort of get on top of you, and then you realise that that's not important. He is the only thing that's important. As you go through the trials in your life, you do worship differently. You will worship differently as a new Christian. You will worship differently as, even a new mother or a new wife. And then as you get older, you will then again worship differently, because worship is from the heart. And as you get older, your heart, it opens up more. And when it opens up more, it can become more worshipful.